Good morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome. My name is Brian Schumann, a member of the class of 2002 in the Hall of Honor Selection Committee. I'm delighted to welcome you all to campus to celebrate this special day for our distinguished honorees in Bowdoin athletics. For some, today's trip to campus is a homecoming, while others are visiting for the first time. No matter how you came to be here, thank you for joining us. Now in its 13th induction cycle, the Athletic Hall of Honor was created to recognize Bowdoin's finest athletes. The Hall's purpose is to celebrate and perpetuate the memory of those who have brought distinction, honor, and excellence to Bowdoin through their achievements in athletics. The Hall of Honor Selection Committee spent many hours discussing over 250 nominees, including athletes, administrators, and teams. With such a large number of Bowdoin's most accomplished athletes to choose from, the selection process was not easy. Selecting only 6 inductees from this impressive group involved careful consideration of an enormous amount of material. The nominee pool is deep and rich and gets stronger each year as more classes become eligible. We selected an extraordinary class of inductees who represent some of the best in Bowdoin athletics. I am proud of the selection committee and the process they went through, and hope today's inductees understand what an impressive group they are entering today. I'd like to recognize my fellow committee members and thank them for their time and attention to this very, very important work. First year members Cliff Webster from the class of 1972, Matt Karras from the class of 1978, and Sue Pardis from the class of 1986. Thanks also to Duke Albanese from the class of 1971, Stacy Jones-Lee from the class of 2000, both of whom have just completed their second cycle as a member of the selection committee. Finally, Jennifer Russell Mahoney from the class of 1989 and myself, who have just finished our service to this group after completing 3 induction cycles. Fellow committee members, it's been an honor to serve the college with you, and thank you very much. Over time, the venues may have changed. We may no longer run laps around the Hyatt Cage, shoot hoops in the Sargent Gym, or skate at Dayton Arena. But with over 650 student athletes, it's clear that athletics continues to energize the campus, develop and refine talent, and fuel the spirit of those who study, work, and coach here. Bowdoin athletics teaches commitment, teamwork, preparation, and sportsmanship. Today's honorees embody these important values while in competition on the court, track, field, and ice, and in their lives after Bowdoin. We are excited to announce a brand new Hall of Honor display will be completed in the next few weeks in the lobby of the Buck Fitness Center. This interactive digital display will offer photos, stories, and statistics to represent each inductee. It will be a fitting tribute to this special group of Bowdoin athletes. This new display will help convey our rich and storied history to a new generation of student athletes. A list of past Athletic Hall of Honor inductees is provided in the back of your program. However, I'd like to pause a moment and recognize those members that are with us today to help celebrate the Hall's newest inductees. Will past Hall of Honor inductees please stand and be recognized? Thank you very much. Now I am delighted to introduce Bowdoin's 15th president, Clayton S. Rose. Clayton.
Good morning. Great to be here with everybody. First, let me congratulate Frank Sebastiansky, Dana, Dick, Christine, Marissa, and Eileen for remarkable accomplishments here. We'll hear more about each of them very shortly, but they represent the very best of Bowdoin values, culture, and what our student athletes are all about here at Bowdoin. Since the last Hall of Honor induction ceremony in 2016, we have lost 2 members of our community, and I wanted to talk briefly about each of them. Coach Charlie Butt, there was a service for him yesterday here on campus. Some of you, I suspect, were there. Passed away just 3 weeks ago at the age of 93. And Jim McCallan, class of 1966, passed away in August after a year-long battle with cancer. I won't do justice to the remarkable athletic careers that each of these guys had, and nor will I do justice to their full, rich, and amazing lives, but I do want to touch very briefly on each of them. Charlie was remarkable in so many ways, gifted athlete and coach who essentially excelled at everything he touched. He was inducted into the Second Hall of Honor class in 2003. He was the coach of the men's swimming team for 40 years, and the women's team for 24, and men's soccer for 23. His own participation in those sports outside of the halls and quad of Bowdoin are well known to many of you. His life and work on the squash courts is something, in addition to all of that, that's quite legendary. Since the announcement that I sent out on Charlie's passing, I've gotten a number of emails from folks in the athletic world beyond and completely separate from Bowdoin about work that he did and lives that he touched that were unknown, I think, to all of us at Bowdoin, but really are very familiar in the sense that Charlie was a mentor and a role model to generations and generations of Bowdoin students, many of whom are in this room today. Jim McCallan was inducted into the Hall of Honor in 2010, also a deeply gifted athlete. Football was the area where he excelled the most, held many records, and his record for most touchdowns by a receiver stands today. He was deeply devoted to the college and did enormous work over the arc of his life in so many different ways, including serving on the board of trustees, which is where I got to know Jim. He was thoughtful, wise, deeply supportive, kind, and a heck of a lot of fun. And we will and do miss them both. It was interesting, I think it speaks to both of them, but at Jim's service, and some of you I know were there in August, the Bowdoin world is a very small world, and it turns out that the pastor at the church where the service was held and where Jim was a member for so many years was a Bowdoin grad, is a Bowdoin grad. She graduated in the 90s. And at the very end, at Jim's request, the last thing we did was to sing the alma mater. And it was a remarkable moment to be in that church at that moment with that pastor to think about Jim. I'd also like us to just remember for a minute and acknowledge another student athlete, remarkable student athlete and member of the Board of Trustees who passed this summer, Iris Davis, class of 1978. Iris was not an inductee into the hall when she passed, not yet perhaps, we'll see what the committee decides. But she was on the hall selection committee from 2010 to 2016 and was the MC at this ceremony in 2016. And she really exemplified what a student athlete is all about. She was the co-captain of the women's basketball team when she was here. She served as the goalkeeper for 2 national championship field hockey teams, played lacrosse, participated in track and field, and in her free time, she volunteered at the Brunswick Department of Recreation. Really a remarkable person, and like Jim, someone that I came to know well for her service on the Board of Trustees. She was also the first recipient of the Anne L.E. Dane Trophy for teamwork in women's athletics. Athletics, as Brian has said, and as you all know very well, are an integral part of who we are and what we are as a college, our values, our culture. Student athletes here develop leadership, integrity, sense of teamwork, effort, resilience, grit, and an enormous sense of accomplishment both through winning and losing and the participation in athletics. And Charlie and Jim and Iris exemplify the best of that. And our 6 inductees today share those characteristics. They have devoted themselves in so many ways to the college and to excellence in their sport, and have accomplished an enormous amount. We'll hear from about each of them in just a moment and what they have been able to do. The last thing I would like to say this morning is to thank you all. Thank you for your support of Bowdoin Athletics, and thank you for your devotion to the college.
Thank you, Clayton. I feel like Brian and Clayton have kind of covered pretty much everything that's wonderful about athletics. But Clayton, thank you for being here with us this morning and for the support that you provide to our students and members of our teams throughout the year. As you'll see today and throughout the course of the year, Clayton's often on the sidelines or in the bleachers, and traveled with our women's basketball team out to Minnesota last winter when we were fortunate enough to participate in the Final Four in the NCAA championship game. So thank you for all that you do to support our teams on campus. I'm Tim Ryan, and I'm very fortunate to be the Director of Athletics at Bowdoin, and it's my pleasure to be here today with all of you, the family, friends, coaches, and classmates of our 2018 Athletic Hall of Honor inductees as we gather to celebrate all of their tremendous accomplishments on campus and welcome our 13th Hall of Honor class. As Brian noted, our Athletic Hall of Honor here on campus recognizes student athletes and coaches who have brought distinction, honor, and excellence to the college through their athletic accomplishments. And as we'll be reminded over the course of the morning today, the class of 2018 certainly has exceeded that very high standard. Athletics at Bowdoin is a valuable complement to the learning that takes place within the classroom here on campus. And the lessons learned in the athletic arena provide an opportunity for students to gain experience with success, failure, and working through adversity, while also developing leadership and communication skills that will serve them well after they have left our college campus. Our ceremony today provides an opportunity to celebrate members of our community that have excelled athletically within the context of the small college liberal arts experience that we all believe in so deeply. We're also reminded of the lifelong connection that participation in athletics fosters, as each of our inductees today have continued to have a strong connection with Bowdoin and call Bowdoin home, with a very special place in their hearts for Bowdoin in their time since graduating from our wonderful college. As we begin our ceremony today, I'd like to take a moment to thank, as Brian mentioned, the members of our Hall of Honor induction committee for all of your hard work during the selection process and all of the wonderful things that you do to support our student athletes throughout the course of the year. I'd also like to thank our Alumni Relations Office for putting together our event today, and especially Jacob Ocean for all of the great work that you've done over the last year or so to help put this event together, coordinating with all of our inductees and Lee. Just a quick round of applause for Jacob Ocean and all of his great work. Thank you as well to Lee Nelson for being with us today. As many of you who are from the local area know, Lee works at NBC News Channel 6 in Portland. He's also the father of Noah Nelson, who's a member of the class of 2019, who we'll get a chance to see playing in our football game this afternoon. We appreciate your willingness to be here with us today and to lead our conversations with our inductees during our ceremonies. Both Lee and his wife Cindy have been wonderful members of our community since Noah arrived on campus, and we're grateful for all of your support, as well as all of the free advertising that you've given to Bowdoin with your Bowdoin coffee mug on Channel 6. So greatly appreciated. Following our ceremony today, I hope you'll join me in enjoying competitions that will be taking place on campus. Our field hockey men's and women's soccer teams will be playing Trinity. Our volleyball team will play Amherst. Women's rugby will play the University of New England, and football will play Tufts at Whittier Field this afternoon. Congratulations again to Christine, Marissa, Eileen, Dick, Dana, and Frank and his family on your induction into our Athletic Hall of Honor at Bowdoin. Your contributions to Bowdoin athletics and our community have made us all proud and have set a very high standard for our current student athletes to aspire to achieve. Congratulations.
Good morning. It's my privilege to introduce Frank F. Sebastiansky, the class of 1941, one of the most accomplished and admired coaches in Bowdoin's history. Is considered the Dean of the Athletic Hall of Honor, having coached 8 inductees. This year, he is appropriately inducted into the Hall of Honor in his own right for his own achievements and contributions to Bowdoin's athletics program and to the world of sport. Standout athlete in both football and track, Sabe was twice named to the All-Maine football team. Sabe outshined these accomplishments as head coach of Bowdoin's track team, however, leading the team to 2 state outdoor titles and undefeated seasons twice, in 1974 and in 1975. Sabe's influence was felt far beyond Bowdoin, however. He served as the president of the Amateur Athletic Union, coach of the Ghanaian Olympic track team, a co-director of the U.S. Olympic team's summer training camp, and a member of the U.S. Olympic men's track and field committee. Citing Sabe's positive influence on him, one of Sabe's former student athletes called him more than a coach in the track. He was a mentor. Sabe was exacting and demanding, but he was also motivational and very supportive. He was truly an exceptional coach who reached and inspired athletes and represented the best of Bowdoin to the world at large. In 1975, Sabe and his wife Barbara fittingly won the Bowdoin Alumni Council Award for faculty and staff. In recognition of Sabe's numerous contributions to Bowdoin athletics and the sport of track and field throughout the United States and around the world, we proudly join his friends and family today to celebrate his well-deserved induction into the Bowdoin College Athletic Hall of Honor. Here to accept the award on behalf of Sabe's family is Steve Ingram of the Bowdoin class of 1965. Steve?
Glad to have you here. This is the fireside chat portion of things. And it was probably not up to code to have an actual fire. So we'll just do this. So you knew Sabe well. What kind of a coach was he? Was he a screamer? Was he a quiet guy? Was he a... Just talk a little bit about what kind of coach he was.
Yeah, first of all, it was an honor to be asked to sit in for Frank Jr. and for Sue Sabrowski. Frank is out of the country right now, and it's an honor, but it's also a terror. But I'd like to start by...
Absolutely, start any way you like.
By bringing the thanks of a very proud family to Bowdoin College and to the selection committee for this honor to a sister and a father and a grandfather and a great-grandfather. They also asked me to congratulate the rest of the awardees and their proud families for this honor. And they asked me to thank the local volunteers who, from year after year, served Frank as track officials, making sure that the Bowdoin hosted track meets were serving the athletes, the coaches, and the spectators. And finally, to thank the Bowdoin track alumni who are here to help share in this celebration.
Excellent, excellent. All right, now, what type of coach was he, do you think?
Well, track coaches are probably as different and as varied as the general population, but I think they share some very common characteristics, and one of them is being a great teacher. One of them is a mentor, as Duke has already mentioned, and of course the respect that they gain from the general public and peers and so on. All of the track athletes would have their own anecdotes about each of those, but in terms of a great teacher, I would mention a quick anecdote. I came to Bowdoin in '61, so was a member of the spring track team in the spring of '62. And at that time, Bowdoin and all the sister schools ran separate freshman programs. So the freshman team was necessarily small, had few to choose from, but they still had to field athletes in all 16 or 17 track events. So it was very common for the athletes to participate in multiple events.
Sure.
When I came, I started practicing in the same events I had done in high school, and the coach came and asked me to pick up the hammer. The hammer, as you probably know, is a 16-pound ball attached to a 3-foot wire with a handle on it, and you try and spin it as fast as you can and get as much distance out of it as you can. Very few high schools had the hammer at that time, so all freshmen were starting pretty much on an even keel with it. So one day I was out there practicing, and I was trying to get that hammer going just as fast as I could so I could get as much distance as it. And in one of those practices, spinning 2 or 3 times, by the time I got to the second turn, it was clear that I had lost control of the hammer, and the hammer was controlling pretty much me. And when I let go of the hammer, or more accurately, the hammer let go of me, the hammer ended about 10 yards away from the circle, and by the time I lighted and so on my backside, I was 25 yards away from the circle. Coach Sebastiansky saw this debacle from the infield and came walking over with a wide grin on his face that was tinged with just enough concern to keep it from exploding into a full-throated belly laugh. But he said, "Steve, what are you trying to do?" And I said, "I'm trying to get as much velocity out of this hammer as I can before I let it go." And he said, "Aren't you taking freshman physics?" Now, I was getting a little uncomfortable because I was doing as well in freshman physics as I was in the hammer. But I said, yes. He said, "Well, what happens when you let that hammer go as fast as you can?" And I says, "Well, it meets the force of friction, and then it meets the force of gravity that pulls it there." And he nodded agreement, and he said, "How are you going to counteract those forces?" And I says, "Well, you got to apply another force in the opposite direction." And he nodded in agreement, and he said, "What's the formula for force?" And I said, "Mass times acceleration." I knew that much physics. And he said, "Well, the mass, of course, is the 16-pound shot put." He said, "The acceleration has to come from you." He said, "Where in that formula is speed or velocity?" He said, "What you've got to work on is let that hammer go with acceleration, not velocity." And then came the audio-visual aid. He said, "This is you." He said, "What you want to work on is," emphasizing, of course, the end result and so on of what I was doing versus what I should be doing. Characteristic of Frank was the instruction followed by an audio-visual aid, normally and often a full-body demonstration of the technique and so on. And that's the stuff of legends, because upperclassmen would pass it down to the freshmen as, "Has Coach done his demonstration of the discus spin yet?" and so on, or the takeoff on a high jump. And if not, he said, they would say, "Look out for that," and so on. But after that demonstration, audio-visual, by the way, there was an audio part of that. I'm not going to try and replicate that for fear what it might do to the amplification system. But after that, he started walking back to the track, and he took a couple of steps, and then he stopped and turned and came back, and he said, "Steve," he said, "your physics class and lab in Searles Hall is only 500 yards away." He says, "All your Bowdoin classes are just a short walk through the Bowdoin Pines and over Route 123. He said, "But you seem to think there's a world of separation between your classes and your throwing circle." He said, "You've got to work to bring those together." And over the next 4 years, he worked with me to make sure I understood that not just the physics class, but my biology class, my psychology class, my sociology class, in fact, any class that worked with human endeavor, had a lab right there in that throwing circle, had a lab in the track or in the basketball court or in the playing field. To Frank, student athlete was one word. He's a great teacher.
Sounds like it.
But great coaches also had an impact beyond the specific sport or beyond the 4 years of contact. And my little anecdote to that was in my sophomore year, again, the spring track, I was trying to come out and practice multiple events again and getting frustrated because I wasn't getting better in anything. So I confided in Coach one day, and I said, "Coach, I think I ought to cut back to 1 or 2 events so I can get really good at something." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, why are you out for track? Is it for personal recognition, personal glory, self-aggrandizement?" Or he says, "Or are you out for track to contribute what you can to the track team?" Now, even I knew the answer to that question. So I said, "Well, it's to contribute as much as I can to the track team." And he said, "Good." He said, "Then consider this." He said, "The 3 points in a dual meet, the 3 points you get for coming in second, and the 1 point you would get for coming in third in a couple events contributes as much, those 5 points contribute as much as the guy who takes first in his event, even though he sets a record. And the same is true at the state event and the regional events. A third place finish is 3 points, and a fifth place finish with 1 point. If you get one of those, you've contributed as much as the guy that breaks the state record in winning his event. And he says, and you can do that, and perhaps more. And then, as he walked away, he called back over his shoulder and he says, and besides, it's more fun and interesting. Now, I was a math major, so the numbers added up, and I appreciated what he was trying to say. I often thought in later years that maybe that just was his nice way of saying, you're never going to get very good in anything. But it was that over-the-shoulder remark that I will be forever thankful for. Besides, it's more fun and interesting, because what the coach was trying to tell me is the more challenges you put in front of you, the more varied those challenges, the richer your life will be. And that's an insight that I've had a chance to thank him for over many years. So that great teaching and that mentoring, that advice for a lifetime is what separates a great coach from a successful coach. Successful coach is measured in terms of wins and losses and performances and so on. And Duke mentioned that certainly Coach Sabe had more than his share of that and so on. And it generates, of course, the recognition that you get from peer coaches and from the public. But for Frank, I think more important, more valued was the respect he got from his athletes. That mutual respect between coach and athletes is an intangible. You don't measure it, you can't measure it, you don't even see it, and so on. But the coach and the athlete know it's real. And it's what generates that march towards excellence and so on. And Coach had many exceptional athletes over the years and so on. His greatest accolade for an athlete was, well, he was a pretty good athlete. So, for example, Dick Levitt, who still holds the Bowdoin shot record, he was a pretty good shot putter. Or she was a pretty good runner. And at that time, of course, after the 70s, they had both men and women track teams, and Frank coached them both. So she was a pretty good runner, you would say. She being, of course, probably one of the premier runners and so on, Joan Benoit. Unfortunately, Frank had died in '83, just prior to Joan Benoit's winning the gold medal in the Olympic marathon. And with that, the laurel crown that signifies the Olympic champion. So Frank, of course, was unable to share in her victory lap wearing that crown. She, of course, was unable to share that, her greatest accomplishment, with Coach Sabe. Instead, when she returned to Maine, she visited Barbara, Frank's wife, and during that visit presented her with her laurel wreath, the symbol of her greatest running achievement. And she presented that to Barbara out of respect for her Bowdoin coach. So I guess, Frank, you'd be uncomfortable with a fuss here today and so on, but Bowdoin honors you today with induction into its Athletic Hall of Honor. I think I speak on behalf of all your athletes when I say we honor you today with our congratulations. And from all of us, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Steve. And I think we see why Steve was the speaker chosen for the family. Thank you so much. That was great.
Dana Verrill has been a good friend of mine for 50 years, ever since preseason football, our freshman year. And I'm very proud to be able to pay tribute to him today. Dana's got quite a cadre of guests who have made the trip here today. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to his immediate family. His dad, David, class of 1950, his mother, Anna. David really got the ball rolling on this whole process. His wife, Dolores, her daughter, Lauren, his surviving brothers, Tom, Jeff, and David, and his sister-in-laws, Sarah, Lynn, Ann, and Karen, and their families. I have one very vivid memory of Dana, and it was at the 1970 Amherst football game, almost 48 years to the day from today. Amherst had a tight end named Gene Fugit. Fugit was 6'3", 225 pounds, set a lot of Amherst records, went on for 8 years in the NFL, 4 with Dallas Cowboys, 4 with the Washington Redskins, and made the Pro Bowl in 1977. Dana was 5'10", weighed an imposing 160 pounds. When Gene ran a deep crossing pattern and the ball went up, you knew it wasn't going to be a fair fight. But Dana didn't get the memo. They both went up for the ball. Dana came down with it. We went on to beat Amherst. It was a beautiful thing. Dana P. Verrill, the class of 1972, a nationally renowned and record-setting defensive back for the Bowdoin football team. Your teammates describe you as a player who gave heart, body, and soul to your team and to the sport. A consummate leader and team player, you led the Polar Bears to the state CBB championship in each year you played. Your extraordinary toughness and commitment drove your teammates to be better in practice and competition. In your remarkable 1970 season, in which you ranked 3rd in the nation in interceptions, you led the team to a 6-1 record. While your ferocious tackling, incisive instincts, and relentless work ethic earned you the nickname Bad Dude from your teammates. You were universally admired and respected as a person of decency, compassion, and character. You continued to receive accolades for these qualities throughout your career as a business and community leader. You made a deep and lasting imprint on your teammates, coaches, and the history of Bowdoin football program. We are delighted to celebrate your induction into the Bowdoin College Athletic Hall of Honor. Congratulations, Dana.
Have a seat, Bad Dude.
I'm here. What can I tell you?
Well, first of all, what made you choose this school? I'm sure you were wanted by a lot of schools.
Not really.
No? It was an imposing size.
Well, my dad, a graduate of 1950, early on brought me to a number of Bowdoin, Maine football games. And obviously they're not on the schedule anymore, thankfully.
Yeah.
And so my exposure to Bowdoin was early on. You know, we lived in Rockland, not that far away. And coming to the campus, there was just something special about the place. And I applied early decision and got in, so it wasn't as if I needed to look any further. So
that was that. So you were a team member of some of the most now, I mean, anybody who follows the football program knows they're almost undefeated every year.
Indeed. They're going to start a streak today, though.
Let's hope so. And for those of you who don't follow it, that is not the case. But you were on very successful teams. What was it about that team?
Well, you know, when I think back about that, I think about the fact that those teams had winners on them.
Mm-hmm.
They were kids who came from schools all around New England, and they were used to winning. And I think a winning attitude is really important to have, you know, winning teams. You know, I think that we also had some great balance as a team. We didn't have that many superstars, but we had some really good players. We had Paul Wiley, who's probably one of the best, ends or receivers. And we had a guy named John Benson who could really throw the ball long. And Cliff was a mainstay at tight end and caught a lot of passes. But when we looked at video, we always waited for the block. He was a ferocious blocker. And it was always fun to see him pancake somebody on film if you didn't see it live. We had a great linebacker in Roger Daw, ferocious kid from Rhode Island, and Duke's territory. And we just seemed to have the right elements. And we were, we really had that camaraderie that was so important to that right chemistry.
Yeah, it sounds like you've kept in touch with a lot of your friends / fellow players over the years. How did playing on the team affect you beyond your years in college?
Well, I think that it's all about team building. I spent a good deal of years in the apparel business. I was a business unit manager for a men's tailored clothing company. And a lot of elements, a lot of moving parts. You've got people who put the line together, people who sell the products, people who market the product. And I think it's really important to know as a leader that you can't necessarily do their jobs. You have to find a way to encourage them and inspire them. But you need to try to build a good team around you. And I think that when I look back at practices, you go on the practice field and you did calisthenics together, and then you broke away into your respective areas, the defensive backs together, the line together, the offensive backs together, and you basically worked on your skills in those particular sessions. And really, you kind of got back together maybe later in the practice, but the really important part of playing football was the game. So you spent all that time during the week really as kind of components of a team, but you really came together on that Saturday afternoon.
And had to trust everybody to do their part of the larger job.
Exactly. One aside here, the coach for the defensive backs was Edmund Coombs, and he was quite an athlete at Bowdoin, but everybody knew him as Beezer. And he was kind of a quiet type of guy, and always took a great deal of pride in certain drills. The tip drill was one of his favorite ones, but Beezer only saw one football game played at Bowdoin a year, and he was the advanced scout. So the only game that he saw during the year was the last game of the season. So, you want to talk about somebody who's really special, and I think he gave us a lot of good inside information from a standpoint of strategy and who the really good players were that we were going to be up against as far as receivers and quarterbacks. So he provided a lot of good information to us.
Excellent. So lastly, how do you feel about being part of this Hall of Honor?
This is, Cliff mentioned to my dad about my dad being, really the one who spearheaded this, nomination process. He called me about a year ago, and he said, "Dana, I want to ask you about something." And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you aware of the Hall of Honor?" And I said, "Well, I know Joe Bonacera was honored as an inductee recently." I said, "But I really don't know a lot about it." He says, "Well, I've been digging into it a little bit." And he said, "I think that you've got some records that have stood the test of time, and with your help, I'd like to put your name in nomination." Well, candidly, if everything had stopped right there, I would have been fine. I mean, how many times your dad call you up and he wants to help you be honored by, So I said, sure. So that began the process, so to speak. He was pretty dogged, pretty relentless, pretty organized as usual. He contacted, people in the alumni office. We talked about every week about who we could contact and write a letter of recommendation. And I don't think we left too many stones unturned. He put together an incredibly compelling dossier or whatever that with the help of a lot of the friends who are here today, their letters, I think had a real effect on my being inducted. So my hat really goes off to my dad for class of 50 for doing such an incredible job. And we both agreed at the outset, this was going to be a long shot. You know, we knew that there were a lot of very deserving athletes that, you know, so it was a really a great joy and project to work with him over the last year, and for it to culminate in being honored today is, how could you ask for anything more?
And let's hope we can win today to help it make
I
it
think
even that much more
My
celebratory.
inside information gives us a pretty good shot at the jumbos today. We'll see. I hope that's the case.
And maybe you can hire him out to future potential inductees too, because it sounds like he's got the wherewithal to make that happen.
My mom and dad are really special people, and they're really the leaders of the family, and you can see why there's a lot of people here today to enjoy in the celebration.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Richard V. Levitt, of the class of 1976. A collegiate national champion in shot put and a standout lineman in football who played in the NFL. You are as well known for your coaching acumen, caring, and sense of humor as you are for the remarkable achievements on the Bowdoin athletic fields. A two-time All-American in shot put, you won the NCAA Division II National Championship in 1975. And it was your incomparable power, speed, skill as an offensive lineman for the Bowdoin football team that earned you contracts with both the New York Giants and the Oakland Raiders. Your teammates, classmates, and friends remember you as undeniably the best multi-sport athlete of our era and a player in a league of his own. And to the many current and former student athletes in Lewiston and across Maine who call you Coach Levitt, you are, as one of them noted, a living legend. On a personal note, when I arrived on campus as a first year in the fall of 1974, all things sports were centric to the cage, that beloved cinder surface that is now the Smith Union. The cage was Dick's playground, and in the cage he was larger than life, literally and figuratively. Today, when those of us from that era think of the cage, the image that comes to mind is Dick Levitt. The intensity with which you approached every movement of every practice toss was an inspiration to all. Dick, today we are pleased and proud to celebrate your induction into the Bowdoin College Athletic Hall of Honor. Congratulations.
I'm coming.
Come on right over. Well, of course, you're just one of the hundreds of Bowdoin football players who went on to play in the NFL.
We had the Soul Brothers and Steve McCabe.
There are a few. I want to start there. What was the transition like going from Bowdoin playing football to going to the NFL?
Well, I want to stop you right there.
Oh, okay. I
want to congratulate everybody because it's quite an honor, very humbling. And I'm particularly honored to go in with Sabe. You know, you asked what sort of a coach he was. Excuse me. And I would say outstanding, okay? And the thing that people don't realize, he was the only track coach we had. And so he's running to the shot put, and he's over to the 55, and he's doing the hurdles, and he's getting the distance kids running. And all the while, he's got that cigar going. And I mean, I'm telling you, he was You know, you can ask Coach Good, because I'm trying to train him with some of the stuff that Sabe taught me as my coaching career starts to wind down. I use Sabeisms all the time, practice. So I just wanted to put that in,
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
I'm really honored to go in with Sabe. It's a personal honor to me. So go ahead. ask.
Well, again, the transition from playing football here to playing in the NFL, what was that like? I mean, it must have, the guys were pretty big in the NFL.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
You know?
There you go.
And I don't mean to be cavalier, but and we tell the kids at Brunswick, where I've been, I was head coach there for 10 years, and I have the honor to coach with one of the, I think, top high school coaches in the state, Coach Cooper. I've been back, I think, 4 or 5 years, and we tell the freshmen that they've got to do a certain amount of preparation to get ready to play JV football. And those JV kids have to do a certain amount of preparation to play on Friday night under the lights and play varsity football. And it was really no different going from high school to college and then college into the NFL. I was blessed with being 6'4", 290 pounds, and, could run a sub-5 flat 40. And, had I been 5'8", 160 pounds, and no disrespect to anybody, but that wasn't going to get me an NFL contract. Right. So genetics, so thanks to mom and dad, that was a big part of it. So.
It's interesting too, the shot put is, it's a singular competitive thing that just you are doing. The football is a team component where you just have to do your job. It seems like often athletes are one or the other. They're not both of those things, but you seem to balance that just fine.
Yeah, somebody had asked me, about competing, in every sport, for 4 years. And, I'll be honest, some of my academics suffered sometime. I mean, flying back and forth to Oakland, during finals just senior year, that was a bit challenging, and, I've got some regrets there. But I felt blessed to be able to get away from the team concept, to get into the individual thing. And it broke up the monotony of just getting in the weight room and training and going out and running laps. And, I really love to compete, and I'm proud. I like to win. That was a motivating factor. I love to compete, and I didn't really like to lose.
That's an important part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, most certainly is.
So you're telling me that the Bowdoin professors wouldn't just let you slide on the final?
Au contraire. Quite the contrary.
I figured. So when you heard you were being brought into the hall, what did you think?
Well, the past few years have been a bit challenging for me health-wise, and and I'd be remiss not to mention my wife Kelly. After 38 years, she lost a battle to cancer, and I'm sure she's up there watching. So it was humbling, one of the premier academic institutions in the United States, to even, attend here, let alone earn the degrees, and then to be put into this, the Athletic Hall of Fame. It was very moving, very humbling. It was just kind of a dream. I'm very honored.
Well, it's a well-deserved one. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Christine M. Craig of the class of 1986, a captain, record holder, an award winner in 3 sports at Bowdoin. You graduated from Bowdoin among the top 3 in the college's history in 10 separate statistical categories in softball, soccer, and basketball. Both an inspirational leader and a valued teammate, You were honored during your time on campus with the Annie L. E. Dane Award for your character, commitment, and team play. One of Bowdoin softball program's all-time greatest hitters, as captain, you achieved a batting average of 470 in 1986, which remains the third highest in program history, as well as a career batting average of 388, which remains fifth highest overall. You struck out a remarkably minuscule four times in 188 college career at-bats. I repeat, 4 times in 4 years. To quote my baseball son, a very talented athlete, that is totally insane. Also a captain of the women's basketball team, you led the team in scoring during the 1986 season. As a senior, you stepped in as goaltender for the women's soccer team in 1985, having never played soccer. And in that single season, produced performances that put you in the top 3 all-time in wins and save percentage. Again, having never played soccer before. Chris, at Bowdoin, we were classmates, fraternity sisters, and friends. Back in the 1980s, I knew you were a good athlete, but had no idea how exceptionally talented you were. To me and our friends, you were just a neat kid from Revere, Mass. In fact, in the fall of our senior year, when many of us were returning to campus with the keys to the family car, thinking we were pretty cool, you arrived in your favorite leather jacket, riding your very own motorcycle. Samuel, I know you're out there someplace. Back then she was cool, and she still is today. And rumor has it she's a pretty amazing coach as well. Your mom is awesome. Few in the history of Bowdoin athletics have maintained such a high level of achievement, leadership, commitment, and integrity across 3 sports. We are proud to recognize your extraordinarily impactful legacy on Bowdoin's athletic programs, and pleased to celebrate your induction into the Bowdoin College Athletic Hall of Honor.
Congratulations. Boy, 4 strikeouts, I don't know.
I don't remember any of them.
Of course you don't. Well, would you like to say anything to me before we begin the questioning?
Well, thank you, Sue, for that beautiful opening. I didn't know a lot of those statistics, so I learned some of them from Sue yesterday when we spoke. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
All right, so the coaches, you know, you're not playing all those sports anymore. What was your favorite sport?
Oh, I'm not going there.
You're not going there? No, because somebody might hear about it?
I got a couple of coaches here, 3 or 4 coaches here today. I liked them all, and it really, you know, I didn't play soccer till my senior year, and I loved it, and I wished I had played earlier, but we didn't even have it at my high school, so we didn't have soccer programs in my city, so I really loved soccer, but it depended the season. You know, whatever season I was in, that's the sport was my favorite, so.
Interesting. Now, obviously the academic challenges here are huge. So you played a sport every single season. Were you ever like, oh my gosh, this is just way too much, or you just loved it all the way through?
Yeah, no, I never thought it was too much. I only played soccer my senior year.
Okay.
So I had 3 years where I played 2 sports. 1 year, I think I was I was on the field hockey manager, I think. And, but, you know, it was demanding. Bowdoin always demanded high academics. But the coaches were great and understanding, and I think people just put it in perspective, Samuel, and you make the time and you do the work.
There you go. And being a coach, even up here. How about your relationships with all your fellow players? Do you maintain a lot of them now?
Some of them, but not as much as I used to. I mean, Sharon's here today. We played basketball. There are, my friends are here, Mo Finn, Paula Tremblay. Who are the other people I played with that are here? Mitchie's here. Well, I didn't play with Mitchie, but she was my roommate for 4 years, so nobody can ask her any questions. Right? But I kept in touch over time with different people, you know, Amy Harper and Jill Birmingham, some of the other great athletes I played with who made me always look better.
And what was it that brought you here in particular?
To Bowdoin?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Revere. I graduated from Revere High School. And I had an uncle that lived with us at the time. We had a big, kind of grew up in the Italian household where everyone lived in the same house. And he went to Brown, and he really wanted somebody to go to an Ivy League school. I have an older sister who's here and an older brother who's not. And he's given me all the Ivy League schools to apply to, and I wasn't really Ivy League material academically. My SATs were okay, but
and that wouldn't matter now.
No, it wouldn't matter now, but this was a while ago.
Right.
So, but anyway, so we applied to a bunch of the NESCACs, and I came up to Bowdoin. At the time, it was a different coach. It wasn't Harvey Shapiro, but I came up and stayed with Debbie Sparrow for a weekend to see it, and I loved it. And I met Sid Watson at a Boston ceremony, and then when I got the big envelope in the mail, my uncle came running out with it on a Saturday and said, "Here it is, here it is."
Now, when you were playing and having all these accomplishments while you were playing, were you kind of aware that you were having a special athletic experience in terms of what you were doing on the field, or did it just seem like you were part of the overall team?
Yeah, more part of the overall team. I didn't really think about it that way. I mean, of course, I always wanted to win, always wanted to play well. And we worked hard at it. All my friends did the same. We were all athletes, and we all were dedicated to our sports and our academics. So no, I didn't really think about it that way. And now, this is back in 82 to 86. So Title IX had only been in for maybe a little less than 10 years or about 10 years. And so there were still some challenges at that time because it didn't start getting really enforced until later on. So there were still some challenges. There were fewer opportunities overall, I think, at that time. Bowdoin had a little different philosophy at that time where I don't think we went to, I was talking with Coach Shapiro about this, we didn't go to the NCAAs. We weren't allowed to go that far. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit of a different time. But the relationships and the competition, can't beat it.
Yeah. And so when you got that call, you're in the hall. What'd you think?
So that's pretty funny. I was stunned. I was shocked. I didn't see it coming at all. My wife has a great picture of me when I opened the letter because she opened it and thought she was going to be something she was going to throw away, and then was like, uh-oh, I better put it away.
Well, they probably thought they were looking for a little cash.
Yeah, right? Maybe, yeah, right?
Not that I've received any of those.
Yeah. So she gave it to me and had the camera ready. She's got a great picture of the look on my face when I opened it. I was completely shocked. I didn't see it coming. Mo and Mitch and I used to joke about it. Geez, I can't believe I'm not in, It was a tongue in cheek. So then I thought, well, maybe they were playing a joke on me. But, and I thought about it. Bowdoin has always looked for the well-rounded person, and they recognize and value different kinds of success. I mean, I have some amazing, amazing honorees here that, all Americans and professional football players. And I'm just, as I thought about it, just honored and humbled to be in their presence, and the others too. And Mrs. Mayo is here. She was our trainer. She's also in the Hall of Honor, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah, obviously it is no joke. You deserve it.
Right.
Congratulations.
Only 4 strikeouts? Really? Struck out 4 times in a men's league softball game. One of the many reasons not to be in the Hall of Honor. The fall is always an exciting time to be on campus, as we know, being here today. And it's exciting for many reasons. New year, rebirth in many ways. It's exciting for athletes for many reasons, but one of the things that clearly happens in the fall, you start to hear about first-year phenom athletes that are already starting to make their impression at a very early stage of the year. And when I was a senior here at Bowdoin, one of those first-year phenom athletes was our next inductee, who we heard very quickly was going to be a phenom, not just in field hockey, but in ice hockey as well. Marissa L. O'Neill of the class of 2005, a leader and clutch performer at the highest level in both field hockey and ice hockey. You returned to Bowdoin as head coach of the women's ice hockey team in 2010 and have continued your legacy of success from behind the bench. Despite all your individual achievements, you are known as a player who made those around you better, and you have continued to mentor, motivate, and elevate other Bowdoiners as a beloved and respected head coach. In fact, I'm sure you have several current players here in the audience and former players, and they are very, very lucky to have you. You were one of Bowdoin's most outstanding field hockey players and an on-field leader, and at your graduation held all-time records in 5 major statistical categories. At the end of your first season, you were named NESCAC Rookie of the Year, and you went on to many, many other accolades. A captain of the team your senior year, your field hockey teams had a 4-year record of 48 wins and 15 losses. You were also a captain and a critical member of the winningest class in Bowdoin's women's ice hockey history, whose teams had a 4-year record of 86, 17, and 6. Won 2 NESCAC championships, qualified for 4 straight NCAA tournaments, twice advanced to the Final Four, and once finished 3rd in the nation. You remain in Bowdoin's all-time top 10 in career points, goals, assists, and power play goals. For your many and lasting contributions to Bowdoin athletics as an outstanding player, team leader, and successful head coach, we proudly celebrate your induction into the Bowdoin College Athletic Hall of Honor.
Congratulations. How about you? Anything you want to say before we start the Q&A?
Not really.
No? No? You're good? It's interesting, quite a few of the players have stayed at the college. You clearly have done that. What made you want to stay?
I mean, when I was a student here, I spent a lot of time in the athletic department. There are a lot of coaches who weren't my coaches who are here today. Liz Grote, Steph Pemper, I saw her walk in. As a basketball coach, Coach Cullen. Jim Caton's office was located in the athletic department, and it just felt like a place you wanted to be. And I think that a lot of people who have stayed on in their schools, I mean, Bowdoin as a whole, I mean, it's just the most incredible place I could ever imagine. I don't think I took it for granted a little bit as a student. And once I was away working at a couple other NESCAC schools, I realized how special and unique it was. So coming back, it was an easy decision.
The women's hockey world, ice hockey, is really growing now. It's really becoming something. But that's just been in the last few years. You've kind of been involved in this rise of women's hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I think really is growing up, my dad put a rink in our backyard. My brother played hockey. My sister figure skated. She dabbled. She dabbled a little bit in high school. But no, I mean, I think it was just a sport that I loved, and it's great to see how much it has grown. You know, looking at the group of players, current players, some former players here from different locations. You know, we have California, Texas, Alaska. It makes a little more sense, but It's great to see the game growing both in the U.S. and obviously it's always been huge in Canada, but it's great to see the boom. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, as I've asked some of the other inductees, what brought you here out of high school? What made this place special for you?
Well, I was coach Michelle Amadon, who was my coach. To be honest, I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire. My brother was going to school down the road at Bates College. I had never heard of Bowdoin. I didn't know anything about Bowdoin until December of my senior year.
Wow.
decided to come up for an overnight when she invited me up. Stayed with Jill McDonald, a field hockey and hockey teammate of mine, who takes all the credit for me being here.
Of course.
Yeah, we came up, it was January break, met the team, went to dinner, we went bowling, went back, hung out in the dorms, and I just liked the kids on the team. That was it, that was the reason I didn't. And then once I applied regular decision, once I was making my decision, I had some teachers at Kimball Union Academy, where I was at school, who were former Bowdoin athletes. And they just said, I think you'd be a great fit for the school. You should really, consider it. And I'm glad I did.
Interesting. And so what did you take from your playing time? And I guess we're focusing mainly on the ice. Obviously, you did very well on the field as well. What did you take from your playing time, and what do you use now as a coach?
Honestly, for me, my success as an athlete really had nothing to do with me wanting to coach. I took more from, my dad, my family, they're all educators, teachers, coaches, having two wonderful female role models for coaches here, Nikki Pearson, who's still here, and Michelle Amidon. I just seen the impact that they had on the lives of student athletes was something that I knew I wanted to be around. And I didn't know in what capacity necessarily, whether I was going to teach or coach, but it was more about the mentors that I had than I love the game, I love competing, I love all sports. But it was really the impact they had on people's lives that made me want to stay in it and what I pull from as a coach.
And when you recruit players now, say you've got a couple of players that you're really looking closely at, and they're very similar, what's going to tip the balance to pick one versus the other?
Oh, where do I start?
We have all the time in the world.
All right. It's their character. And compete level. Those are the two things they have to come in with. That's most important to me. We can have someone who has great hands, who's flashy in front of the net, but in January when you lose a couple games, are they going to be practicing as hard as everyone else? Our group, I say, yeah, they are. They're an incredible group of kids, and that character piece is something. The academic side, as coaches, we don't really have we don't have a say when it comes to that, and good for them for getting into school now, because Bowdoin is very difficult to get into. In the athletic side, obviously that's really important, but the character piece, we spend a lot of time together, they spend a lot of time around one another, and it needs to be the right fit. It doesn't have to be the same personality, but it needs to be the right fit, and that's something that's really important to me as a coach.
Yeah, interesting. And obviously you were that type of player as well as all of these.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All of the women's ice hockey players now going to work sporting events on campus. It's 0-0 in the field hockey game right now. Eileen M. Moore of the class of 2007, one of the most dominant and accomplished players in the storied history of women's basketball at Bowdoin and across all of Division III. As a leader and player, you set the standard for individual and team excellence that all Polar Bears have followed since. After 4 years at Bowdoin, you stood within the top 8 in all-time in 18 statistical categories, including 14 in which you were in the all-time top 3. In career points, career free throws, and single-season points, you remain Bowdoin's all-time leader to this day. Your senior season stands as one of the most outstanding individual performances in Bowdoin women's basketball history. Your 572 points and 161 free throws in 2006-07 remain all-time Bowdoin records. As a tri-captain, you led the team to a 30-2 record, the NESCAC championship, and the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament, and you were the first ever Polar Bear recognized as Division III WBCA Player of the Year. A beloved teammate, inspirational leader, relentless worker, and go-to scorer, you exemplified the excellence and character of Bowdoin women's basketball and helped the team to an astounding 112 wins and 9 losses in your 4 years, including 4 NESCAC championships, the best record by any senior class in program history. In recognition of your extraordinary achievements and profound impact on the landscape of women's basketball at Bowdoin, we are pleased to honor you as we celebrate your induction into the Bowdoin Athletic Hall of Honor.
Hi there, how are you? Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Wow, that's a lot of points. You scored 500 plus points in 1 year?
I think you need to check my assist statistics because I didn't have many assists, but
Wow.
I racked up the points.
Well, if they're all going through the hoop, it doesn't matter. Wow, that's unbelievable. So, I mean, were you doing that right off the bat freshman year, or did things change for you over the course of 4 years?
So obviously I arrived at Bowdoin. I knew the program was highly successful. They had won the NESCAC championship at least the year before, if not a couple of years before that as well. I was a freshman. It took time to learn the ropes of the program. It took time to adjust to playing at the collegiate level for sure. But I had chosen a NESCAC program because I did want a program where I could contribute right away if I could. I knew that might not be a possibility, but I wanted to choose a program where I thought that might be something I could do. And so I think I became a starter around Christmas time. I'd become familiar with the program, learned the ropes, like I said, and then we started to just win games. And I think I said, is this normal that we win every game? We didn't lose until the national championship. So yeah, I sort of jumped
What's it
right
like
in.
to play in a national championship game?
The Final Four experience was really unforgettable, and at the risk of sounding cliche, it truly was unforgettable. Like, I remember minor details from that trip, such as who my roommates were, or the exact room we ate breakfast in at the hotel the day of the national championship game. And obviously, there was the devastating moment of losing the national championship game, but when I look back, it's not really that I remember. I remember the moment after, standing as a team with each other and just celebrating the season as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, so is there a way to come away from that and say how? It was an amazing year. You didn't win the final game.
No.
What do you take away from that?
So every year we would have a goals meeting, and our goal, I think, every year was win a NESCAC championship, win a national championship. And for my class, that was easy because we had gone to the national championship game, so that was the level we wanted to be at every year. So I think that was always the goal, and to have a team that's that successful, you have to have winning attitude on everybody's mind. So everybody's going to be extremely disappointed when you lose, but we still talk to that day about that year and that special year and all the memories we created, and you can't recreate it any other way. It's really special. We always wanted to get back there, never did, but we got to the Elite Eight.
Were you aware? So let's say the tournament is starting, okay, and you're walking into the arena with your black suits on and the bear paw. I mean, clearly people are going, that's the polar bears. They're really good. Did you feel that?
Yeah, I think a little bit, but I was a freshman, and I think I felt the pressure a lot less than some of our upperclassmen. Luckily for a freshman, you sort of have fewer expectations imposed on you, so you're just kind of trying to do the best you can for your team. I think if we had returned there my senior year as we wanted to, it would have been a lot more focus on that. But I think also not a lot went into the rankings at the Final Four. We were just all there ready to compete. And I mean, everybody knew about you guys, though. They knew how successful you'd been. Clearly, they would have to. Yeah. I think we did have a little bit of our target on our back, I'd say, just as any team does when you're 30-0 or 29-0 when we came into that weekend. So, yeah, that was a little tough, but.
So the things that you learned playing for 4 years, what have you taken in your post-college world? What skills do you still use that you learned on that team?
Yeah, so I think one of the main things that Bowdoin basketball opened my eyes to is that for a team or an organization to be successful, you have to have every single person on the same page with a common goal. And like I said, we would meet every year and have a goals meeting, and we'd discuss those goals, and you'd articulate them, and you put them out there, and that made yourself accountable to not only yourself and what you wanted to achieve, but to your teammates. And it really made you think, if I don't do my part, I'm going to let my teammates down. And that obviously translates into, life after college. I was in a meeting recently, and a manager said they were at another meeting where a manager was talking to his staff and saying, I need you guys to be more athletic. And no one knew what that meant. And in my head, I said, I think I might have known what he was saying.
Sure.
And ultimately what he was saying was, I thought you knew what I meant. I want you guys to be more vocal. And something Steph Pemper, my coach, emphasized in practice every day was talk to each other, cheer each other on, tell each other what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And so that really resonated for me. Everybody else in the room was like, yeah, we have no idea what he's saying, but I was like, I can tell you.
There you go, excellent.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you this too, why this school?
So I was familiar with the NESCAC conference because my brother went to Tufts and he played basketball there as well. But I told my parents I was never going to Maine. I said, nope, I'm from Southern Connecticut. We go to New York City. I'm not going all the way up to Maine. And I think they convinced me to make a visit in the fall. I realized that Maine does have restaurants, stores, and civilization.
And
so that
shoes,
was
we
good.
all have
Yeah,
shoes.
well, that's good.
Most of the time.
And so I met Steph on that visit, and she was really warm and welcoming. And she just wanted to get to know me as a person, which was a lot different than a lot of the visits I had made with other coaches. I had a great time with the current people on the team. I went home after that. I was also interested in Amherst and Williams, but they told me that winter and spring that they had no more spots left in the class of 2007. So I will note that we beat them every year that we played them. So I returned to Bowdoin that spring for the Accepted Students Day, and I still loved it, and that sealed the deal.
Yeah, it seems like for everyone, it takes just a trip to campus, right? On a nice fall day, and you pretty much locks you in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
All right, wow, what a morning. I want to thank, especially the young people in the audience, about a handful of you. Thanks for your attention this morning. I know it's not easy to sit here for that long and listen to all these old folks get up here and start talking. Especially you, buddy, right? I'm talking to you. You were phenomenal. You really were. Thanks to Lee Nelson as well. He was fantastic. How about a round of applause for Lee? I think after hearing all of these phenomenal athletes speak, I think we can all agree that athletics isn't just about wins and losses and statistics and playing time. Sometimes we get so focused and wrapped up in all of those things. And I think what we all heard this morning rings true for not only these fine athletes over here, but all the other athletes at the youth level, the high school level, the college level, the pro level. We learn lessons and learn about ourselves in ways that many other places can't really push us to. And athletics provides us with a forum in which to do that. So I hope you heard this morning maybe a story from someone up here that you can maybe go share with someone else who wasn't in this room, because I think we can learn a lot from the great stories that these folks shared today. So thank you all for coming. Be sure to check out our many events that we have going on today. In the back of your program, you can find out where those events are and who's playing who. And at this time, I just wanted one more round of applause for Frank Sebastianski, Dana Verrill, Dick Levitt, Christine Craig, Mercer O'Neill, and Eileen Flaherty Moore. And thank you all again. As always, go you Bears.